The King's Men is available on a BBC video and includes a special documentary paying tribute to the heroism of the Sandringham Company.
In a place where life is cheap.
If anything happens, don't wait. Just drive.
Love is priceless.
Can't stop what it's happening. It's gone too far.
But in a war with no winners.
What are you doing? Don't even start. Let me guess who was here last night. Unless you started wearing lipstick. It's called messing around with a married woman.
There can only be losers.
You got very close to people out there.
Powerful new drama.
I don't want to hear. I don't want to know. Get your filthy war out of my house.
Warriors. Next Saturday and Sunday at 9 on BBC One.
Seeking pardons for British soldiers executed by their own comrades in the First World War, a solitary fight for justice from a former prisoner of war. Everyman in 10 minutes. The BBC News, now on BBC One with George Alagaya.
International rescue teams converge on Turkey in search for quake survivors. But it's a dangerous task as aftershocks continue to shake the region. Lennox Lewis, Britain's first undisputed world heavyweight champion. And lest we forget, Prince Charles leads tribute to those who died for their country. Good evening. The now desperate search for survivors of the earthquake in Turkey has been hampered by freezing weather and a series of aftershocks that have reduced even more buildings to rubble. Over 370 people have been confirmed dead. While some families still hope for news of survivors, others have been burying their dead. The town of Duje was at the epicentre of the quake. Our correspondent, Jonathan Charles, is there.
The danger is far from over. Another building is sent crashing to the ground by one of the many aftershocks now hitting Duje. This powerful earthquake continues to unleash its destructive force. Hundreds of people are still missing beneath the rubble. A British rescue team detected possible signs of life in a collapsed block of flats. Getting in and out to investigate, though, is perilous. But Graham Day told me his men won't give up while there's any chance of saving lives.
We've had reports of 3 people trapped in the building. The dogs have been working in the wreckage and they've become quite excited at the front and side of the buildings.
Anxious relatives try to help, drawing maps of the flat's layout. Seville de Vergiolo says her sister and brother-in-law are inside. They could be alive. Others in Duje have already been plucked from the rubble. The celebrations are muted, though. This woman was one of the lucky ones today, but 48 hours after the earthquake struck, few expect to discover many more survivors. British naval helicopters from HMS Ocean are ferrying the exhausted rescue workers to where they're needed. Flying with them, I could see the scale of the devastation which has overwhelmed this region. But unlike in the previous earthquake 3 months ago, the Turkish government's response has been well coordinated. The authorities here have undoubtedly learned from their much criticised handling of last August's earthquake. But the painful experience gained then may well save extra lives now. Jonathan Charles, BBC News, Duje.
Sinn Féin says it's optimistic about a possible breakthrough in the Northern Ireland peace process. But the signs are that some Ulster Unionist politicians remain sceptical over whether the latest proposals guarantee the handing in of terrorist weapons. Both sides are due in Stormont tomorrow in what could be the final session of the current review of the Good Friday peace agreement.
For 10 weeks now, Senator George Mitchell has kept a tight shield around the review process, but that hasn't stopped intense speculation about the details. The main players are not divulging what's on the table, but Sinn Féin leaders acknowledge a new level of negotiation with Ulster Unionists.
Each party is now discussing this matter with their officer boards and with their structures. Hopefully tomorrow we'll see, I believe both sides have crossed the Rubicon and we will meet each other on the other side, hopefully tomorrow.
The Northern Ireland Secretary has indicated he'll talk personally to grassroots Ulster Unionists if invited to explain where the review now stands. it appears senior party members are ready to accept a looser timetable for the decommissioning of IRA weapons.
If we have clarity and certainty that the state of affairs in Northern Ireland is going to be as we require it, permanent peace, no illegal guns and weapons, then we can deal with a week, we can deal with a fortnight.
A weekend of reflection and consultation is supposed to have created a new determination among all parties to agree a compromise deal that will bring devolved government to Northern Ireland in conditions of permanent peace. John Thorne, BBC News, Belfast.
Barclays Bank has confirmed it's to close about 200 branches in the UK to cut costs. The bank says it's planning to invest more money in its remaining 1,700 branches, telephone banking and internet services. The branches are expected to be shut next year. Barclays announced 600 redundancies in May. Today's announcement could mean even more job losses. Lennox Lewis has become Britain's first undisputed world heavyweight boxing champion this century. Lewis won his rematch with Evander Holyfield in Las Vegas on points, but his achievement has been overshadowed by a new row within the sport.
A remarkable 6,000 people had come halfway round the globe to see Lennox Lewis claim what they felt had been wrongfully denied him in his first fight with Evander Holyfield, the undisputed world heavyweight title. In fact, they weren't to be disappointed, although the contest itself was anticlimactic. You'd get more decent punches at a cocktail party than were thrown in the first 6 rounds.
Lewis right hand, the chopping right and
But it came to life briefly in the 7th and the 9th rounds, with both men delivering and absorbing telling blows.
Lewis here coming on strong.
Lewis's superior boxing just about outweighed Holyfield's greater aggression, though not by the wide margin given him by the 3 judges.
Lennox Lewis.
But this being boxing, nothing is ever clear-cut. Immediately after the fight, the IBF claimed that on a technicality, Lewis hadn't won their belt, so couldn't claim to be undisputed champion. The fight game had instantly reverted to depressing type. Not that it bothered the winner.
I've been through a lot of trials and tribulations and whole heap of politics and different dramas, and I always said that Lennox Lewis was on the mission, and I finally succeeded in that mission today.
So, in the last weeks of the century, Britain finally has the world's supreme heavyweight. Lennox Lewis can feel justifiably proud, but this wasn't quite the sort of fight that boxing needed to redeem itself, and the champion still has some sceptics to win round. Kevin Geary, BBC News, Las Vegas.
Tony Blair's given a clear indication that the government will cut benefits for offenders who ignore community service orders. It's thought the measure will be included in the Queen's speech on Wednesday. Severe floods in southern France have killed at least 26 people. 2 people are still reported missing, and officials believe the death toll could rise. The floods have destroyed roads, railways, bridges and power cables in the Aude, Tarn and Eastern Pyrenees. The government says it will declare a natural disaster in the worst affected areas to speed up compensation. Investigators are examining the cockpit voice recorder from the Egyptair plane that crashed into the Atlantic 2 weeks ago, killing all 217 people on board. It's hoped the tape, which was recovered by the United States Navy, will help explain why both of the plane's engines appeared to shut down in mid-air. Flight investigators have also found that the plane's automatic pilot was turned off seconds before the crash. The Prince of Wales has led the wreath-laying ceremony at the Cenotaph in London to honour the century's war dead. The Queen and the Prime Minister paid their tributes in South Africa, where they're attending the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting.
For the final time this century, they gathered at the Cenotaph to remember the sacrifice of those who died defending the freedom of generations to come. Absent this year was the Queen Mother, who led the nation's tribute on Thursday, but who today was suffering from a slight chill. On the balcony where she normally takes her place, the Earl and Countess of Wessex, Princess Beatrice, and the Princess Royal's husband, Commodore Tim Lawrence. Absent too, 6,000 miles away in South Africa, the Queen. It's only the 4th time in 47 years that she's been abroad on Remembrance Sunday. But both she and the Duke of Edinburgh were able to pay their tribute to the war dead in a ceremony at the Cenotaph in Durban. Back here, the guns sounded the start of 2 minutes silence. And then the Prince of Wales, on his 51st birthday, laid the first of the wreaths from the royal family and from political and military leaders. With the Prime Minister also in South Africa, his place was taken by his deputy, John Prescott. The Princess Royal, who usually watches from the balcony, this year took part in the wreath-laying for the first time as Colonel-in-Chief of the Blues and Royals. The service over, veterans from the wars that claimed so many of their comrades marched once again, side by side. Jenny Bond, BBC News.
The last Remembrance Sunday of the century. Well, that's all from the newsroom this weekend. Good night.
Cannabis has got a strong argument for being decriminalised.
Ecstasy tablets are very dangerous, and I take a very serious view of it.
My personal view is that people who are supplying are the scum of the earth.
Panorama reveals what the cops really think about drugs tomorrow at 10 on BBC One.
The weather now on BBC One with Michael Fish.
Good evening to you. As this particular cold front moves down across the country, it's going to be heralding the start of something of a cold snap. We start off with the winds in the west, then eventually they go round to the northwest, and later on in the week to the north. So it is going to get colder and colder, particularly in that wind, which is going to be fairly strong and quite keen too. In fact, around the middle of the week, we can expect a reasonably widespread frost. Not so tonight, quite mild in most parts of the country, perhaps just a little bit of drizzle here and there, and some more noticeable rain coming in towards northwestern parts right at the very end of the night. And that band of rain tomorrow, starting off through Scotland and Northern Ireland, easing southwards during the day, eventually ending up in northern parts of England and Wales, allowing much brighter weather to follow into the north. But in that brighter weather, it'll be breezy and colder, and there will be some showers, and before the end of the day, those showers turning wintry over the Scottish hills. The rain's not going to reach the southeastern corner until well after dark, so there most of the day should be dry and bright. As you can see, temperatures more or less around average for the time of year. The rain clearing, and then a breezy but showery day on Tuesday.
Twin lives shaken by tragedy, but strength comes from an unlikely source. Film drama Reunion on BBC One at 5 to midnight.
Personal testimonies.
I remember thinking to myself, this is fun. This is war.
Heartbreaking memories.
I thought, well, I don't know, I'm probably going to die.
Unique lives.
I did think, I wonder what's going to happen to us all.
Finest Hour, Wednesday the 24th of November on BBC One.
The legacy of war now on BBC One, Everyman with an incredible and personal campaign for justice.
This is a public paper.
Morrison! Carry on! Right, and...
I'm trying to persuade the government that they should grant pardons to the soldiers who were executed in the First World War for offences which were abolished by Parliament about 10 years after the end of the First World War. To execute boys who should in fact have been sent home by the Army's own King's regulations, I think is one of the most heinous war crimes to come out of the First World War. And then to further compound this criminal act
by putting a 75-year secrecy ban on access to the court-martial documents is particularly dishonourable. And I think this was designed to protect the families of the officers, and they didn't give a damn about the families of the executed soldiers. One of the most tragic things I've found is at least 5 boys, underage boy soldiers, whose execution was totally illegal by the Army's own standards. The 75-year secrecy ban on access to the court-martial files has effectively prevented the relatives of the executed from organising some kind of attempt to lift the stigma from the family names. These men were not cowards.
I would compare the injustice done to my grandfather and the other executed soldiers as the same as somebody who's been wrongly convicted of murder. And that is the same stigma that the families had to put up with.
He wouldn't speak. He wouldn't speak of it at all.
No. I think they were shot because they just thought it would make the others work harder. I think it's terrible. Can't believe that men could treat other men so badly.
Well, it happened out of the blue. We never expected anything like that. And the oldie corporal came in and he said, I'll be taking 6 of your rifles away. So I'd taken 6 of the rifles away. What for? No, Mum, what for? You'll be called up at daylight and marched into a wood. I thought, well, what the hell is this for? But you soon found out. Saw 2 military police. You could just see the outline of them. 2 military police. One arm on one side, one on the other. And they put him with his back towards a tree. And they said, we heard him say, do you wonder why I'm blindfolded? And we thought, what a kid. And we had the order, after he got the blindfold, let the 2 military policemen go out the way. I left him standing against a tree, and they had the order, present arms, fire! But he was only a kid. It's only nerves. It's not cowardice at all.
My campaign takes a very simple form. I stand with a placard which gives the details, for instance, of Private Burden, who enlisted at 16 and was shot at the age of 17 1/4. And I have leaflets with me, and if anyone wants a leaflet, I give it to them. And it's a one-man, non-violent, silent vigil. But it obviously upsets a lot of people in places of power and influence. And my leaflets and placards have been confiscated in Edinburgh. They are today in the hands of the procurator fiscal who will decide whether or not to prosecute. And if he wants to take me to court, well, that's okay by me. I'll go to court.
He thinks of them as his boys, you know. The young ones. He talks about my boys. Gets me upset sometimes. But I only hope to God it'll get sorted soon, because I don't think it can go on much longer. It's gone on a long time now. Years and years.
What can you say of a wife who watches the retirement of both of us draining away in this campaign? I couldn't do anything in this campaign without her 100% support. She's not very happy about the untidiness of the room, I think.
It drives me crackers. At first it started with a little bit of paper, and now there's a complete forest. Rainforest's gone because he gets such a lot of paper printing and things like that. If John's in Newcastle with a placard, and I know where he is, I'll go from one end of Newcastle to the other to avoid him. We'll go right round. But the rest of it, I'll help him with, but not those. She rang up the Lib Dems in London, and it's something about the war pensions, but I couldn't understand what she meant. But he doesn't get it, nobody will get this part. But, oh yes, you've got to have faith. In life, you've got to have faith. And John has a good faith. Stronger than mine, I think. Perhaps. I don't know. Nobody can tell what each other's faith's like. It's a personal thing inside you. He's a devout man. It's a mission, I think. A mission in life.
I always went to church and Sunday school as a child, and religion of one kind or another was present all the time. Campaign is part of the faith. It's part of a church's social teaching that there be justice done.
He's like St. George and the Dragon, you know. Weaving a spear around. But his spears are words and actions, I suppose. I think he empathises with these boys. I think it brings it all back to John.
Just about 15 minutes walk from where I lived, I walked down the quayside, and all the ships used to come and go in the time when I was a boy. So ships and the sea were very close to all of us on the River Tyne. I was born in Byker, a suburb of Newcastle, in 1926. I had a loving family, and I grew up in what was one of the worst slums of Newcastle. But when you're a kid, you relate to your surroundings. I wasn't aware of being poverty-stricken, but I had a very happy childhood. When I was about 12, I joined the Naval Cadets quite naturally. It was a sort of a halfway step to doing the real thing. We were all convinced in the UK that the German invasion would be laid on in the late spring or early summer of 1941, and we'd lost all our military equipment at Dunkirk in France, and the need was to stock up with arms and planes and food and oil, and the only way we could prepare for this invasion that was sure to come, as we believed then, was to bring vast quantities of cargoes across the seas, and the only way to do that, of course, is to join the merchant navy.
Tyneside is hard at it, but of course no one in the whole of Britain can doubt the imperative need for ships and still more ships.
I discovered, to my joy, that you could join the merchant navy at 14 as a cabin boy, galley boy, deck boy. No fraudulent enlistment here. It was accepted. At 14 you were fit enough to go to sea. I discovered that all you had to do was to pester local shipping officers long enough, and there would be a vacancy for a cabin boy, a deck boy or a galley boy somewhere. I did eventually get a chit from one of the shipping officers to go to a doctor to go for a medical. And I told my parents at the end of the day, and they'd been wondering where I'd been all day long. And my father had the idea that if he's going to be as stubborn as that, well, perhaps he let him have one trip to sea, and perhaps he'll be so sick and he'll be delighted to come ashore again. Of course, it didn't work out like that. It's an incredible feeling to be going off to sea. I've always wished to do that, and this was a dream come true. We didn't know where we were going until well into the North Atlantic for security purposes, but I did find out that we were headed for Curacao, the Dutch West Indies, to pick up oil for the UK, and the idea of sun-bathed beaches and palm-fringed beaches and so on.